Hi. I've been very vocal in the past to ask for real-life provider stories. How do you deal with complex issues? How do you deal with problems? So I guess I haven't picked the easiest subject, but I'll explain what we saw from a service provider point of view about the Taiwan earthquake that happened on December 26th. So you'll see it's not a pretty story. So first I will go into what is required to build a backbone. Can I pick this up? Because I don't see my screen here. Okay. Yeah, I don't think it's... I won't do it. Okay, so I'll make things complicated. Okay, so how do we build a backbone from the US to Asia? What our backbone looked like in 2006? What happened about the earthquake? What were the damages? How do you repair subsea cables? What was the chronology of repairs? And what's the current situation and lessons for the future? So how do you build an Asia backbone? There's actually two types of subsea cables that you need. You need some trans-Pacific portions and you need some intra-Asia portions. So in the trans-Pacific, you have a choice of China-US, Japan-US, Pacific Crossing 1, and TGN-P for Pacific. China-US and Japan-US are pretty much full, so the ones left are PC1 and TGN-P. Then you have to combine these routes with either APCN2, C2C, EAC, or FLAG North Asia Loop. So it's been a busy year for Teleglobe 6453. We've been really putting the spotlight on Asia for 2006. So we've been adding geographies, 2 sites in Singapore, 1 site in Tokyo. We consolidated our Hong Kong presence. We upgraded bandwidth on all segments. And we also are planning, always looking at, when we plan and design our backbone, we need to have subsea cable diversity, always favor low latency, and always improve our pop meshing. So this is the backbone of Teleglobe in the Asia Pacific. So you see the trans-Pacific assets on this side and the intra-Asia assets on this side. And you see the gray points in the middle is where you interconnect or cross-connect those cables in the landing stations. So having a logical route from the US to Asia actually requires 2 cables. So the black one here is the design for FNAL and APCN2. This is EAC, and this is CMIWI 3. APCN, the old APCN, and China-US. What happened? On December 26th, there was an earthquake of magnitude 7.1. 4 minutes later, actually 8 minutes later, there was another one of 6.9. And then the second aftershock was 4 minutes after that at 5.2. And the third aftershock was 3 hours later at 5.5. So it was very, very severe. And what made this earthquake severe is the depth of the earthquake. It's only 10 kilometers down. So it causes typically a lot of damage on the seabed. So why were all the cables hit? If you look at the cable designs, you see that APCN2, these are ring-protected cables, and both legs pass through the Luzon Strait, which is between the Philippines and Taiwan. So you always have, when you buy your ring, you get a first path, and you get also a protected path. The same on C2C. Both legs go through the Luzon Strait, same for EAC, and the same for FNAL. So what makes this strait so attractive to cable builders? Well, really, there's only 3 routes between Southeast Asia and Northeast Asia being Japan and Korea. There is the Luzon Strait, which is 320 kilometers wide, and it also has a very good deep basin. It's 2.6 kilometers. There's also a route going south of the Philippines, so you could circumvent the Philippines and go between Philippines and Malaysia to reach southern Malaysia. However, this adds a lot of mileage to the route, hence latency for your backbone. And there's also the Formosa Strait. The Formosa Strait is the strait between China and Taiwan. The narrowest part is only 130 kilometers, but it's very, very shallow water. It's 70 meters deep. And the major cause of failures to cable systems is fishing activities. So it's not your optimal path for a backbone. So given the current market requirements, which are we want low latency, we also want the cables to lie very low, there is not much alternatives to the Luzon Strait. So during that earthquake, even though many of the cables are ring protected, both legs passed through the strait were exactly where the epicenter of the earthquake was, and the system suffered multiple failures. So both legs went down. So 9 cables go through the Luzon Strait and 7 went down at the same time. And no cable was available to offer restoration because all the others were down as well. So we had to wait on cable repairs. Here I received this morning a beautiful map from Darren of PCCW, who just volunteered this map here. This is the seabed with all the cable systems in the Luzon Strait. I can blow it up here. Oh, that's going to be tricky. Where's my mouse? Whoa. Whoopsie. Well, I don't think I can blow it up. It was. You can. It will be in the slide, and you can blow it up. But you can see how busy this 300-kilometer strait is. And actually, there is a lot of islands that you can see there, and you probably wonder why it's all at the northern part. Well, this is the Bashi channel, and all cables go there because it's the deepest part of the strait. So what happened to our backbone during the earthquake? Well, the X's pretty much show you what went down. So there was not much left. We had USA to Tokyo, but that was a dead stop. The Tokyo to Hong Kong was down. We had Singapore to Palo Alto via the bottom path. It was very, very, very gruesome. So the remaining cable routes were up to Tokyo, the CMUE 3 from Hong Kong to Manila, and also Singapore to Manila. So not your optimal thing. So how do you repair a subsea cable? Well, first, what you need to find is the subsea cable itself, and cables are only 20 millimeters in depth. And this is a subsea cable here. So this is what you need to retrieve at the bottom of the sea, 4 kilometers down. And subsea cables have to lay at the bottom of the ocean. And when you have an earthquake, it displaces the cable. It also uplifts some sediments. It can bury the cables. So it makes the searching party very difficult. You can't even send a remotely operated vehicle at these depths because further down than 2 kilometers, your robot won't work. So you have to use a tried and tested technique. First you need to hire the cable ship repair. And there's very few of these cable ships. Like all cable systems have cable ship repairs on hold, like ready for a call. but they all got the call at the same time. You also need your cable maps. You need not so rough weather, and it's been very rough in Asia lately. And you need a grapnel. And the grapnel is 24 inches by 18. And you have to lower it down at the bottom of the sea and then drag the bottom floor, hoist your cable, and repair it. So I have this animation here to show you how it's done. And this animation I retrieved from the website of Alcatel. Okay. So first you're equipped with your map and you have to go approximately where this cable should be if it wasn't moved. And you need to go behind the fault, retrieve it, you cut it, then you pull it up, then you put a buoy on it, then you move your boat to further down to your cable because you need to pick it up, be able to hoist it up. Then you put the new repair cable, you attach the two together, and you lay the pad down. So as you can see, when you have a fault there and you've added a loop from the seabed up to the surface, you've added probably, if it's 4 kilometers down, you've added 8 kilometers of new cable to the system. Okay, so how did it go back? On December 28, EAC got repaired. Although some reports say that EAC was not damaged, it had suffered some damage a bit later, but that one was repaired. That was the first one to be repaired. Then on January 2nd, some very resourceful people in our company, and they're in the room today, Annie and Luigi and the engineering team, they started to call up on our sister company and say, did you have assets that we can use? What can we do? Can we restore on some of your existing facilities? So they went and set up layer 2 VPN tunnels through our sister company network, one from Singapore to Santa Clara via Chennai, and the other one from Hong Kong to London. So that brought some relief, not total relief, but some relief. Then on January 2nd, we regained partial backbone via China-US, so our Hong Kong-LA logical route was restored. And then on January 29, it's APCN2. APCN2 was restored fully, and then we regained the rest of our routes. So on the 30th, everything was back in service, so a month later. So there was, just to give you perspective, there is 18 different faults on these cable systems. Each fault has to be repaired by one ship. You need to go find the fault, pick up the cable. So every repair on a segment takes 7 days. So it's been round-the-clock repair. And then we got our backbone back. So what should we learn from this? Given the Luzon Strait and given the economic conditions, can we build cables in that area differently? Probably not, unless we all collectively want to have more latency for our traffic. So it looks like we have to go west, and we have to go from Asia to Europe, and we have to take the other route. So there's been a lot of activities lately in the recent years. If you look, in April 2002, there was a new cable laid, the eye-to-eye, India to Indonesia, starting to go west. Then the Tata Indicom between Chennai and Singapore. Then there's been an India to Sri Lanka cable announced. And SIMI 4 became operational in December 2005. And Falcon became operational in September 2006. And there's more announcements because the demand, the India traffic and China traffic is really exploding. So there is a lot of demand. And the latency from Asia to Europe is much shorter if you go west than if you go through the Pacific, around the US, and across the Atlantic to reach Europe. So it starts to make sense now. And also in 2006, VSNL announced another cable, the India to Europe cable, IMIWI. So there's been a lot of announcements and activities. But these cables are not here today. So I think as a design, you should probably try to circle your backbone. Make sure that you can back up your traffic from the east, from the west, and not be, think outside the box a bit and say, okay, this should be good for my network if I went west. It probably won't be very cheap because these will be new cables. That's the economics of new cables. But probably customers will demand that. So there's been also 3 large projects across the Pacific that's been announced and just this past month. There's the Trans-Pacific Express cable, the FLAG NGN cable, the EAC Pacific cable, and IMIWI TIC, because as I said before, Japan-US and China-US are full, and the other 2 networks are Pacific Crossing and TGN, and you probably want more than 2 cables to build your diversity. So there is room for these new cables. So as a closing note, this is one of my favorite characters from Tintin. Don't know if you remember that professor, but he always said, go west, a little more to the west. Thank you.